We have a number of speakers. The first is Michael BLOYCE, and if there is one person in this room who probably knows more about the Sunshine Coast Arts Convention and Exhibition Centre project than anyone else, it is Michael BLOYCE. He's been closely involved with every feasibility study into the centre since 1990, and in 2007 wrote a 340-page research project and report into the new centre detailing the history, what it should comprise and how it should be funded and what operational measures should be in place. So he does know the project intimately, and you have some other notes there on Michael. Congratulations.
Yes, he's just received a new gig. He's Manager of Arts and Culture for the Gladstone Regional Council, and congratulations on that appointment, Michael. And without any further ado, please welcome Michael BLOYCE.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm delighted to be here to support this project tonight. Thank you to Rosanna and Cam, and also, of course, to Alison Barry-Jones, whose initiative keeps putting this project in front of the public eye. I think it's a great thing, and let's hope that one of these days we see this project come to fruition. I want to talk to you briefly tonight about two aspects: a brief history of the project and also some issues of scale and cost. Firstly, to the history. The concept of a major arts and convention centre on the central Sunshine Coast has been around since a Maroochy Shire Council resolution was passed in March 1984. There have been multiple feasibility studies since that time, the most recent being the Ranbury report, involving several sites and numerous concepts. None of them, of course, have come to fruition, with the result that the Sunshine Coast is now the largest population base in the state without a major tiered theatre and a CBD-based meeting and conference facility. In 1999, a milestone feasibility study for a performing arts and conference venue on the Sunshine Coast was undertaken by consultancy firm Pacific Southwest Strategy Group and funded by the Queensland State Government. And that, of course, was due entirely almost to the initiative of Alison Barry-Jones at that time. The study concluded that a tiered theatre of commercial size, interfaced with a multi-purpose conference and exhibition centre, would be capable of sustaining itself financially after 3 years. Council discussed the proposal of joint venturing for the inclusion of an international hotel as part of the complex. By 2009, Council had obtained federal government funding of $1 million towards its latest report. This study, undertaken by Ranbury Group of Brisbane, recommended a massive 4,500-seat convention and entertainment centre costing a cool $256 million, plus a civic plaza costing a further $71 million, a grand total of $327 million. If I could turn now to issues of scale and cost. As I just mentioned, the Ranbury report recommended a huge 4,500-seat centre focused on conventions and entertainment. It is a bold, futuristic vision, but my professional belief, based on 23 years of venue and event management on the coast, is that firstly, it is too big, and secondly, at $327 million, it is far too expensive. As a third point of contention, the Ranbury proposal also contains no theatre, stating that the existing Nambour Civic Centre and Caloundra's Events Centre will suffice for local theatre goers for the next 20 years. Let me deal with each point in turn. Firstly, the question of size. The Ranbury recommendation to build a 4,500 seat venue is based on the assertion that this number is necessary to attract well-known entertainment acts. That may be true, but my industry experience leads me to question how we might compete for such major acts with the Brisbane Entertainment Centre barely an hour away. In my opinion, no major act is going to play the Sunshine Coast in preference to the capital, and no major act is going to play Brisbane and then have a stop only 1 hour north. The logistics of touring and marketing indicate to me that this just isn't going to happen. In terms of conventions, the vast majority of major conventions have less than 1,000 delegates attending. Those that have more are much more likely to be attracted to the existing Brisbane or Gold Coast convention centres, where the range of business accommodation and tourism attractions are that much more developed. So for meeting and conference purposes, 4,500 seats sounds wonderful, but in reality most of those seats will hardly, if ever, be filled with conference delegates. Secondly, the cost of the Randbury proposal is just too expensive in the current and likely future economic climate. Governments at every level at the moment are struggling with debt. It is a time of economic winter, not summer. Historically, most of the funding for arts or convention centres comes from the state government, with smaller contributions from the federal and local levels. Let's be realistic. Our state government is in the business of paying off an $80 billion debt, a process that could take at least 2 or 3 terms of government. I don't believe that in these circumstances it will be receptive to a request for funding in the order of 250 to 300 million. And lastly, the Randbury report specifically excludes a theatre, stating that the existing facilities in Nambour and Caloundra will suffice for at least the next 2 decades. This strategy completely disenfranchises local audiences and condemns them to attending second-rate facilities for years into the future. The existing venues at Nambour and Caloundra are over 20 and 30 years old, and of course, as you know, I managed Nambour for 15 years. They have flat floors and small stages, have no orchestra pits, have too few seats for commercial success, and are not located in the principal activity centre of Maroochydore. They are difficult to access for patrons and performers, and parking can be difficult. I know from experience that many touring arts performances bypass the region because our facilities simply don't measure up. So to suggest that local audiences should have to put up with these conditions for another 20 years or more is, to me and many others here tonight, unacceptable. The arts should not be an optional add-on. All the great cities and civilisations of the world are built on great artistic traditions and superb facilities that showcase the artists. Virtually every regional city in Queensland has a tiered theatre, to the extent that we are now the largest population base in the state without one. Yet the Randbury report says we should wait another 20 years for the privilege. How is this going to make the Sunshine Coast a favoured destination for touring and performances of high calibre? If it is accepted that the Randbury model is too big, too expensive and flawed in that it does not include a tiered theatre, what suite of facilities should be provided? The answer is to go back to what every other feasibility study over the last 28 years recommended, namely a combination of a theatre and a multi-purpose space that provides versatility and utility and in turn maximises revenue streams. Let me take 2 examples 21 years apart. That 1986 feasibility study, prepared by Blackburn and Jackson, proposed a 1,400-seat multi-purpose hall and a 1,000-seat tiered theatre, an adjacent car park, an outdoor amphitheatre and catering facilities, all down on 6th Avenue overlooking the beach, mind you. It was ahead of its time and would have given the then 55,000 population of Maroochy Shire an enviable suite of facilities that would have served it admirably to this day. My own 2007 research and study report proposed a tiered theatre of 1,260 seats, a 2,300-seat capacity flexible purpose events hall, a small 350-seat space theatre, 10 breakout meeting rooms and a regional art gallery to service the central Sunshine Coast. A centre with these facilities would be in a position to host any major arts production touring regional Queensland. It would cater for conventions of up to 1,250 delegates. It could host a dinner for 1,300 people. It could host a stand-up rock and roll concert for 4,000 people or an indoor sporting event for 2,300 seated. Importantly, properly designed, this concept could be expanded at a later time through the addition of a second events hall to cater for larger scale concerts or sporting fixtures. 2 important things to note. My 2007 report was used as the basis for a 2009 Maroochydore Community Facilities pre-feasibility study, which costed my proposed model only 3 years ago at $94 million plus car parking. There's a big difference between 94 million, or say 105 million in today's money, and Ranbury's $327 million. Secondly, in a letter sent to the ACE Committee only last month, it was noted that Council has noted but not endorsed the Ranbury report, nor has it made a final decision on the scale or elements of the proposed new centre. Ladies and gentlemen, in summary, I urge the Council to reconsider the recommendations of the Ranbury report. Like many others, I consider it a 4,500 seat, $327 million venue to be too big and too expensive. Like many others, I believe a tiered theatre should be a part of the mix. I urge the Council therefore to come back to what has been proposed for almost 30 years, a proper regional theatre of commercial size, a large flexible multi-purpose events hall to suit dinners, balls, conventions and exhibitions, a regional gallery for the central Sunshine Coast, and a suite of meeting rooms, foyer spaces, backstage facilities and rehearsal studios that will deliver us a venue that will put us on the map. A centre of which we can be proud, a centre we can afford, and an arts convention and exhibition centre which the Sunshine Coast has desperately needed for almost 30 years now. Thank you.